Hello, everyone. My name's Artemis Black, and we're going to answer a few questions for those people who don't actually know what's going on whenever you see people asking about, Cyanide, Blood Bowl, being insolvent. Are they going to close? What's going on, essentially, with Cyanide, with Nacon, with the upcoming Blood Bowl 4 slash Warhammer Blood Bowl? I mean, there are not a lot of answers. Just going to warn you in advance. But I'm going to give you some background, and then we'll talk about what it could possibly mean. So first up, who the hell are Big Ben? Big Ben are were the publishing studio, essentially. Big Ben Interactive in 2018 bought Cyanide. Cyanide before that were an independent studio and worked with Focus. Focus published Blood Bowl 2. Cyanide made Blood Bowl 2. But Cyanide weren't owned by Focus. They were an independent company, and then Big Ben bought them. In 2020, Big Ben split itself into two companies, Big Ben Holdings Company and Nacon. Nacon now became the video game publisher, and Big Ben just became a holding company. No one knows why they did that. It doesn't own any other companies, as far as we can tell. It's just a holding company that handles Nacon's finances. I'm assuming there's, some financial or tax reasons or whatever, but that's what happened. In 2021, Big Ben wanted a big cash injection, so they issued bonds. This is essentially like crowdfunding a loan. Get a loan from a bank, you owe one person. You issue bonds, you owe multiple people, multiple companies, multiple banks. Whoever buys bonds, you owe them the money. And they raised 87 million euros by issuing these bonds. That's how many people invested in Big Ben. Bearing in mind, this is Big Ben. They'd already split into Nacon. No one invested in Nacon. People invested in Big Ben, the holding company. And these were all coming due at different times. Like some people will have arranged different financial repayment structures for these bonds. And by the end of last year, November 25, about 60 million of that debt was still owed. And a lot of it was coming due in February of 26. So knowing this in advance and knowing they didn't have 60 million euros sitting around the bank, they made a press announcement that they were going to restructure their debt. They were going to borrow 43 million from French banks to do debt repayment and restructure their finances with the rest of it, like moving forward to 2032, I think they said. So basically they made an announcement that everything was fine, and they sorted this with the banks. And this was all due February 18th, 19th. A couple of days before that, they made an announcement that the banks had in fact decided not to give them the money after all. There's a big argument by the two sides over who's at fault. The banks claim Big Ben did something iffy. The Big Ben say they didn't. But this left Big Ben in default, essentially. They weren't paying back their debt. They haven't paid back the debts that are owed. So they're currently in default. Weirdly, they are not insolvent. They have not filed for insolvency or anything like that. They're just in default of these debts. So you assume that they're currently just having meetings, etc., trying to sort their debts out. So how does this affect, the only thing you care about? I just noticed the line at the top. It's kind of annoying, isn't it? So Nacon, after the split, they were the video game arm. They were the company that basically made all the money, right? The Big Ben is just a holding company. So Nacon's money comes in, pays out all the studios and their debts and their regular stuff, and then profit moves up to Big Ben to pay off the bondholders over, the various people that have been paid off over time. That's where the money came from, the money that Nacon were making. So the money is sort of flowing in a circle, right? It goes up, it comes back down. Money comes in, goes to Big Ben. Big Ben pays off debts. Money comes back down to Nacon when they need it, that kind of thing. So due to this, somehow Nacon don't find themselves with no money. I assume legally they're forced to pipe the money up to Big Ben as part of the legal arrangement. So they don't have the current, because Big Ben now can't give them any money back because they're defaulted and their money is earmarked for bond repayment. Nacon find themselves cash flow like restricted, and they have their own debts, their own working debts. So a couple of days after this announcement that Big Ben are now in default, Nacon announced that this is a knock-on announcement, a knock-on effect to them. They're in financial issues and they're trying to restructure their own debts, etc. But that doesn't happen, and on the 25th of February, they file for insolvency. This means they can't pay their debts. Essentially, they're telling the court, hey, we can't pay our debts. Can you step in, please, and stop creditors from coming and, like, taking our stuff? Because then the company will close, everyone will be, like, laid off, and that's bad for the economy. They're a big enough company that, they can go to the courts for this. You can go to the courts for this if you're small, but big companies are normally helped out because of, obviously, the knock-on effect of, Nacon overall have over 1,000 employees, I would believe. So on the 3rd of March, they were granted this judicial reorganization. This means they can carry on trading, and day to day, there's not a lot of difference. Sorry if there are any weird pauses. I'm having to constantly stop and start again because of my condition. So they're paying wages, they can release games, but they can't make any large moves without approval from the court-appointed administrators. But they do need to restructure their debt. They need to get back into the black as quickly as possible. At longest, they have 18 months. We don't know how long they've got. They might only have a certain amount of months and then can apply for an extension. That kind of information is usually private. It's not normally released to the public. So that's the situation with Nacon. Nacon are the publishing house, remember? So Nacon are the ones who would release Warhammer Blood Bowl. What about the studios that Nacon own? Oh, that's wrong. Look, I wrote March 111th. Sorry about the thing. It's confusing to do this in bits and bobs because I have to stop in between. So the studios, Cyanide are the one we care about, right? They're the ones that have the license for Blood Bowl. So on March the 11th, which bear in mind is a week after the Nacon have announced they're in judicial reorganization, they announced the demo for Rumble Bowl. Rumble Bowl is the sevens format of Blood Bowl that is going to be included in Warhammer Blood Bowl 4. They announced it for a week later, so you got to assume it's finished, right? It's not like they're still making it a week before they put it on Steam. However, on March the 17th, the day before it's supposed to come out, they announced it's being delayed. Not for a specific amount of time. Until later. I think they said later than planned, to quote them. No date. And now it's March 29th, no date. March 23rd, a week after that, Cyanide filed for insolvency, as did some other studios. And tomorrow, March 30th, tomorrow's as of the date that I'm recording this, they get their judgment on whether they can go into judicial reorganization, the same as Nacon. Until that happens, we don't know if Cyanide are just going to go under. We can assume not, because they said yes to Nacon. Why wouldn't they say yes to the subsidiaries of Nacon? But until it happens, that's an assumption. So, cross your fingers for that. What does it mean, the insolvency and judicial reorganization? Well, it would mean the same as Nacon. They would have someone put in charge, maybe the same people. They are tied together. Like Nacon, Cyanide just make games. They don't sell things. They make games. And then Nacon publish those games and take the money from the sales of those games, and then that money flows back down to Cyanide to pay their wages. It's a circle of cash, Some of the money also flows up to Big Ben to pay off debts. But Nacon are the company that essentially makes the vast majority, if not all of the money. I don't really know exactly how their finances work. No one does. But that's basically how it works. So you'd hope that that would still be allowed under any reorganization that happens, that circle of cash would still be allowed, because obviously Cyanide need their wages paid to continue working on these games. We don't know that, though. This is the problem with putting out an article like this. Well, things that we don't know are equal to the things that we do know. Some things we can't guess because it would be irresponsible. We can say what could happen, but we shouldn't guess what is going to happen. And that's this. Like, what could be next? What's the thing that could happen? Well, the worst case scenario is nothing. Nothing happens next. Either Cyanide are told they can't have judicial reorganization and go under, or Nacon's financial reorganization fails. Warhammer Blood Bowl doesn't come out. And that's the end of online Blood Bowl. Other than Fumble, which we'll mention later. That's the worst case scenario. It's a possibility. Is it a likely possibility? I don't think any of us know that. A guess, no, because Nacon were awarded judicial reorganization, which normally means that the courts see that there is value in the company and that it is viable. So as subsidiaries of that, you expect Cyanide and the other studios to be part of that assessment. What else could happen? Everything could be normal. Other than delays because of what they're going through in the courts and stuff, everything's normal. The demo is released. Warhammer Blood Bowl is released. I mean, delays probably, but that was expected anyway. Cyanide have delayed pretty much everything ever. So could be normal. What are the odds of that? Probably higher than nothing, to be honest. These companies were clearly solvent. They were paying off debts for Big Ben, so there was profit. But it's not a guarantee or anything. I wouldn't bet any money on this. I would not be taking any bets that this time next year I'm happily playing Warhammer Blood Bowl and everything's fine. I'd like to be. But I wouldn't, bet any money on it. What about the license? People always talk about the license. Like lots of people don't like Cyanide. They don't like Blood Bowl 3. The problem is licenses are legal arrangements. Obviously, if the company that has the license goes under, the license will almost certainly just revert back to Games Workshop immediately. There are other reasons it could revert. One of the creditors for Cyanide and Nacon could be Games Workshop, and if it could be written into the license that if they don't get paid royalties or whatever, then the license reverts too. There may be other legal things with regards to releasing games based on Games Workshop IP that we aren't aware of that could come into play. So there are lots of things that could happen with the license. But again, as part of the normal, the likelihood is that if Cyanide stay open and if Nacon stay open, the license stays with Cyanide. If or the worst case scenario happens or there's extended delays, you can play Blood Bowl online. You should look up Fumble. I'm going to mention that in a minute. But until we know more, like it's a little bit doom and gloom to be, planning the next year of playing on Fumble or moving to tabletop or playing on Tabletop Simulator or whatever they're making over there. Tomorrow's hearing is the first big one, right? The 30th of March. That will be the first big news that we get. Hopefully we hear that those studios get put into judicial reorganization. And I say hopefully not just for my own benefit, right? It's not all to do with Blood Bowl. The differences that I have with Cyanide are mainly with individuals. I don't have a huge problem with the company or anything, and none of the other studios either. I don't know anything about Nacon's organization and whether or not the article by the French Union is true, and they're all shit. I don't know anything about that. Nobody should want 1,000 people to lose their jobs, ever. So hopefully they can sort this shit out. And everything goes on semi-normally. This could have knock-on effects for other things. One of the things you should worry about is Blood Bowl 2. Remember that they're not in charge of their own finances right now. So a court-appointed administrator, Blood Bowl 2 almost certainly is a money loser. Servers are not free, and Blood Bowl 2 almost certainly makes no money, right? As part of that judicial reorganization, turning off those servers just to save some money is something that an administrator might definitely ask them to do. So Blood Bowl 2 should probably be worried more than Blood Bowl 3, to be honest. I can see Blood Bowl 2 disappearing pretty easily, unless, again, there's something legal stopping that. Blood Bowl 3 was always planned on being turned off and transferred to Warhammer Blood Bowl, so that's not an issue with servers or anything. I think Blood Bowl 1 still exists, right? The servers for that, so maybe there are legal things keeping those games in place, but other companies have turned off servers, so unless their legality is insane, you got to think that maybe those disappear. Another thing that's a problem is if they are going to launch Warhammer Blood Bowl, if they are allowed to release it, they almost certainly won't be allowed to market it heavily. Marketing costs money. Not that, Cyanide do a lot of marketing anyway, but even less is like paying people to market a game you've already finished instead of just dumping it out. An administrator might not allow that, which means that Warhammer Blood Bowl could have a bad launch, which is another problem for the future of Blood Bowl, obviously. Bad launch equals less money coming in, equals less likelihood of updating things, fixing bugs, releasing new product, and all the new races, etc., etc. We want it to both release and be successful. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if it's released. If it doesn't work, if it's buggy and they're not going to bother fixing it because they haven't got the manpower, it's still pointless. But again, despite having problems with certain people at Cyanide, they're not all loons who lie about me online. The majority of them are just people with a job, right? We want that to not happen. We don't want them to just all get laid off, the company go down. Irrelevant. Like you can come up with amazing pie in the sky scenarios. Oh, the license will go back and then a better company will make Blood Bowl 4. Like even if that happens, your dream out there, that's not like it takes years to make a video game. Blood Bowl 4, like imagine if that happens, right? These companies go under, the license reverts to Games Workshop. Who do you think's making Blood Bowl 4? And when do you think that's coming out? They'll have to find a company who's interested in doing it, who thinks that there's money in it. And then that doesn't come out until what? 2029? Awesome. That's not something you should be wishing for. Warhammer Blood Bowl is almost certainly mostly finished. That can come out vaguely delayed. Spring is when they said that was coming out, which ends at the end of May, which is when they were planning on putting it out, the end of May. I don't know why they say spring. They literally mean the last day of spring, probably. But even if it's pushed into summer, that's 3 years ahead of if some other company making it. I'll take that. And as for me, even with all that said and done, right, that I want that to happen, I will be making and releasing an intro to Fumble video probably tomorrow. Just in case, right? Because I plan on playing Fumble anyway. Fumble has third season rules right now, starting on Wednesday. Whereas, even without this, Warhammer Blood Bowl wasn't coming until the end of May minimum. That's a good 2.5 months. Well, no, 2 months. A good 2 months of third season I could play and practice on. So I'll be doing an intro to Fumble for those of you who don't know what the hell Fumble is, or for people who've heard of Fumble and haven't tried it. I heartily recommend it. It doesn't mean I'm trying to do it as Fumble don't make any money, right? So this is not a direct competitor to Blood Bowl 4 or anything. You can play both as I do quite easily. But I'll be releasing that fairly soon. I'll probably try and get it out tomorrow. And if you want to talk about this, if you want to ask any more questions about the stuff that I talked about, if there's anything I missed, I'm not entirely certain it is. I did mention that Cyanide have already started selling studios. They've offered one of the studios that is currently going into receivership. They'd offered it for sale already. Spiders, the studio. So they are looking to sell off assets. So again, that selling Cyanide thing is a possibility. But for all we know, Cyanide are they have their own subsidiary studios. Like there's another level under Cyanide. They have 3 subsidiary studios of their own. So maybe they're the company that Nacon most want to keep. If you want to talk about any of this, I will be streaming on Twitch pretty much directly after I put this video out, or even while I'm putting the video out. It takes a while to upload and process. And we will go back to, more regular coverage of telling people how to set up against a blitz, or complaining about new skills after this. I had a lot of questions about this, right? People constantly in Discord and in Twitch chat, what's going on with Blood Bowl? I've heard this, I've heard that. So I figured this was nice and easy to put out. People can just go and watch this video, and it should give them all the answers. And if they have any other questions, they can come ask me there, as can you. And I will see you either there or in the next video. Don't forget to press all the buttons. See you next time.